frequency.
Your protection from deception. This is Truth Frequency Radio.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, welcome to the Friday edition of the Paranormal Portal. Hope you guys are having a great week. Have had a great week. Welcome to the weekend. You have made it. It's now the weekend. You're free and clear to do whatever you will, unless you work on the weekends, and then I'm just sorry. I'm just sorry. But whatever you're doing, I hope you're enjoying it, and thank you for joining us here on the Paranormal Portal. Of course, I'm your host, Brent Thomas. And I'm thrilled to be here with you. I can't think of anything better to do on a Friday night, but then again, this is what I do. So before I go any further, let me welcome my good friend and co-host of the show, Mr. Don Longbeard.
Hola.
Hey, Don, how you doing?
I always love it when people at work, they go, man, I have this really bad stomach ache. I said, oh, why is that? Well, I had Chinese. I said, well, you got to really make sure that cat's cooked really well before you eat it. So, thought I'd leave with that. He's like, what?
I can only wipe my face. And next we'll be covering cultural diversity and sensitivity here on the portal.
Oh, boy.
Wow. Yeah, that kind of entertainment's free, ladies and gentlemen.
Anyhow, it's Friday night.
It's Friday night. Here we are, and we are rolling into the Paranormal Portal weekend episodes. If you're watching on YouTube, or if you're not watching on YouTube, you sure can. You can see us do this live at youtube.com/Paranormal Portal. And if you're looking at us on YouTube, or if you're in the listen to us at home on iHeart, TuneIn, TalkStream Live, or TFR Live, you can call in and be a part of the show. The call-in number for the Paranormal Portal is 213-233-3998. Again, 213-233-3998. And that was just me tripping over my tongue, which happens from time to time. But if you're in the UK and you want to be a part of the show, you're always welcome to call in as well. It's a little early in your neck of the woods, but we always welcome your participation to our great friends across the pond. The call-in number for you is 44203-393-2871. Again, 44203-393-2871. Just a quick announcement. I would like to take just a quick moment and mention something that I think is paramount and important to anybody who's trying to live a healthier lifestyle. I know that I'm trying to, being careful what I eat, trying to live a more active lifestyle, trying to stay away from a lot of chemicals and such. And I know living in this world nowadays, it's like next to impossible. It's really next to impossible to do that. And I just became aware of a new filter that's out there for water. And through the TFR, we sell the Alexa Pure systems, which are great. They're a gravity-fed system, and they do a great job. And you can find out more about those on tfrlive.com, and a great price. But if you're looking for something inline for your indoor plumbing right on your sink, and it's the best-rated filter out there for removing things from your water, you can't beat this system, and you can find it at firstinwater.com. Again, firstinwater.com. So if you're interested in trying to take better care of yourself and being careful about I mean, you got to realize the stuff that's in water. Don, you know this as well.
Oh yeah.
The amount of junk in water.
Oh my God, it's horrible.
It's absolutely terrifying what is in our water. And believe me, ladies and gentlemen, Flint, Michigan is not the only problem, not the only problem community. So definitely take care of yourselves and, make the investments into things that really matter. I mean, we need water. That's all there is to it. But we don't need fluoride and chlorine and all kinds of other stuff in our waters. I think here on the show, it's pretty much preaching to the choir because most of the people listening to the show are, working on becoming healthier and living better lifestyles and are plugged into a lot of this information. But definitely check it out, firstinwater.com. And they also have an amazing air filter, air purification that does 99.99, which is above the HEPA standard, the true HEPA standard of 99.97. So they're doing 99.99 filtration on their air, and the water is just as amazing. So I just want to throw that out there.
Wow.
Just, looking after your health. I know it's something I'm doing, and I think it's something we all need. But this is the Paranormal Portal, and of course, this is a show about the paranormal. Now, if you tuned in on Wednesday's show, you'll know that we did the witches, a Wicked Witch, and other dark manifestations, and a theme kept coming up in there that I thought it would be great to cover on tonight's show, and that is the curses phenomena. The curses. So many curses happen, and you hear of them as a result of a lot of the Inquisition and the witch trials and the witch hunts. These curses were put out there. So we're going to get into that tonight in a second. But before we go any further, I just want to say a big thank you to a great supporter of the show, a great friend, and he's made the Paranormal Portal studio even better. You can see him in the chat room. He goes by the chat name in YouTube of Lord Vader. Lord Vader. Thank you, brother. He brought over this amazing big monitor. It's just outstanding.
I'm jealous.
I got like a wall of TV in front of me here. It's great. I'm just surrounded by computer screens now, and it feels really comfy. Feels like I'm commanding a starship here or something. It's really cool. But thank you so much, brother. You're my hero. And if you'll notice, so far, as I've had them hooked up, I don't have that blipping monitored issue that I was having.
Well, you moved it to your laptop. Has it done that on the other side there?
It did it once, but what was happening then is that it was trying to assign the monitor for some reason as a sound device.
Oh.
And I have no idea why. It's a freaking monitor. So it's flaky for a whole different reason, but I just disabled that on the laptop, so hopefully that'll be fine. But yeah, special thank you, and I appreciate it, brother. You're amazing. So thanks for doing that. So here we are, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to get into this stuff tonight, but before we get into the meat of the show, I want to go over a listener email that we got. Again, this is, for me, these listener emails are the cream of the crop. This is the thing I'm most excited about with the show. So I hope you guys don't mind. I don't know if I got to remember what I read and what I didn't read. Hold on here.
Just read the last line. It should be a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
Hopefully that's Ruthie Ann's.
Yeah, this is another one from Ruth Ann, and I think this one I haven't read. But
oh, thank God.
Yeah. What?
Well, no, I mean the other one was a cliffhanger. I wonder if there's more.
Oh, right.
Is this the second part?
This is another one from Ruth Ann, and this is really cool. So tonight I'm going to read this one to you guys to start out with, and this says, "Hi Brent, here's another short story for you. This experience happened when I was about 13. It was a confusing experience because at first I was certain it was a dream." No, I did read this one, didn't I? This is the one where the guy was on the couch, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I almost reread one.
Excited.
I know. Ruthie, you got to send me another one.
Good ones.
I know. She's got a whole bunch of them. This one I had not sent or had not read. But let me read this one to you guys.
Zoom in.
Yeah.
Zoom in.
Oh, yeah. Zoom.
Before you do anything, zoom in.
Thank you. That's good. The way that the email is formatted is just absolutely tiny.
Now I can read it.
Hey, good. Okay, so this is from a listener, Diana, and we're going to read this one now. A few years ago, we lived in the suburbs outside of KC. My hubby and I had our bedrooms in the our bedroom in the basement, as the hubby was always hot, and my brother, who lived with us, was always cold. So we switched bedrooms. My brother's room was now upstairs and was across from my son's room, and my daughter's room was next to my son's. The kids' room were on the first floor, so every night I'd check to make sure the windows were locked and then to go to bed. Well, it was a Sunday night, and I put the kids to bed, and the hubby and I went to bed. We always sleep with a fan going, and I'm a pretty deep sleeper, and my hubby definitely is, and snores like a grizzly, so I don't usually hear anything but maybe footsteps upstairs. I'm awoken up by my son screaming, "Mom!" And there is a tone a child gets in their voice when a parent knows that something is truly wrong. Both my hubby and I are immediately awake and alert. We both jumped up and said, "WTF." Before I can get all the way out of bed, my son flies down the stairs. I mean, I'm not sure he even touched a stair on the way down. He is terrified, shaking, stark white, and stuttering, trying to talk. Thank you. He finally says, "There's a man in my room." My hubby immediately grabbed a gun and heads upstairs, and then he says, "I heard a man's voice, but no one was there." He was definitely at the phase where he was lying. He was definitely at the phase where he was lying and playing tricks, etc. But I knew by his reaction that he was not messing around, and he was genuinely terrified. I said, "What did he say? Did he hurt you?" He told me the man just said, "Son, son." And what scared him was he said he didn't see anyone. My hubby checked the whole house and outside the house. No one. And the window was still locked. I made my son a bed on this chair, and we had folds out that folds out flat, and was talking to him when I touched his forehead and ran my hand over the side of his face. His skin was hot to the touch. I took his temp, and it was 103.3.
Wow.
I immediately gave him Tylenol and put a cold rag on his neck, and as I was sitting by him asking him if he felt nauseous, etc., it dawned on me. He had been fine all weekend, nothing out of the norm. And if that voice hadn't woke him up, who knows how his fever would have went. And what was odd is he never woke up my brother, who was 10 feet away from his room. Yet we heard him scream downstairs. If he had woken up, my brother would not have caressed his face to know he had a fever. My son's fever broke, and everything was fine. And I think it was an angel that woke him, because son is such an odd thing for the voice to say. My son is 13 and still vividly remembers that night. I often wonder if he is sensitive because he has had some other experiences over the years, or we have had experiences and they always seem to be tied to my son in some way.
Wow.
And that's a wonderful story, and you're absolutely right. That's it sounds like it was an intervention, and it would stand to reason that your son is latently psychic, or could be potentially a natural medium. And there's so many accounts of people who are aware of spirits, but the spirits are also aware of them. It's like that ability is a beacon. Mm-hmm. And it like spirits will find people that are sensitive. Something about a spirit can tell when a person is able to hear them and see them and can relate their stories or whatever. So yeah, I would think that that's probably a strong possibility. So very cool, though.
Yeah, that is way cool.
Thank you for sharing that. And ladies and gentlemen, if you have stories of your own you'd like to share, please send them in. We would love to hear your encounters and your stories, because it's just amazing. There's another one that I want to read. This is the one you forwarded me.
Yeah, this came from Reports of the Unexplained, the Facebook website that we have.
Now I got to zoom back out so I can get that other.
Oh, it was right there on top.
Oh, yeah. Oh, well, maybe if I do this.
There you go.
There it is. Okay. This one.
Yep.
Okay. So what was the background again? This is from the...
Well, yeah, this was something that was sent to our reports page, Reports of the Unexplained on Facebook.
Okay.
So we received it there, and it was Danielle, of course, forwarded it to both of us, but she missed your address, so I just forwarded it to you. So this came from a listener.
Outstanding.
And so you'll read it right there. So.
All right, and thank you, Danielle, for bringing this to our attention. That's outstanding. And thank you, listener, for sharing your story. But let me just read what happened here. I just started watching your YouTube videos and love them. They're super interesting. Well, I watched the one with Bear about Bigfoot, and I think my YouTube is under uh, a different name. At any rate, I was discussing it with my hubby, and we always joke that he is a cousin to Bigfoot because he is a huge, hairy guy. And he reminded me of an incident that happened a few years ago that we really couldn't explain. And we lived in rural Missouri. There is an area we go swimming and fishing on the Grand River. We go there a lot, and, well, one weekend we went to this spot and swam all day and had the whole family. The kids were like 5 and 7 around that time, so I'd say about 5 years ago. Well, the kids and I decided to head home, and the guys decided they were going to stay and do some night fishing. My hubby gets home at like 4 a.m. and wakes me up coming in, and he said it was really weird there. And he said we heard screams or something walking around the camp, sticks breaking, etc. And at first we thought it was another group coming to fish. Then rocks were being tossed at us.
Oh.
He said, I thought it was our son messing around till I noticed he was still fishing. He said, I didn't get too worried till I walked off to the woods to go pee and a rock landed pretty close to me. He said it was like a 15-pound rock.
Oh, wow.
He said that is when he decided we better head home. He never heard an animal call or etc. and doesn't to this day know if it was another group of campers, but he said he didn't have a gun, so it was time to go. My husband is 6'2", 315 pounds, so big man, and he is an avid hunter. And he said what bothered him the most is people make noise when they walk through brush, and they make noise when they walk on rocks. And that night, he never heard more than sticks breaking, so he couldn't really track where what was throwing the rocks at him. He will not go anywhere now without a gun for protection.
Wow.
And I agree with you. I think that your husband had a close encounter. Rock throwing, of course, is very common behavior for Bigfoot. And when they want to harass you to move you out of their area, maybe there was a family group close by or moving in for that period of night, because they are semi-nomadic in a sense. They move around a given area because I think they need a lot of range to, just to sustain themselves.
Well, they're huge.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And, much like a grizzly bear, they have a huge terrain or a huge territory that they stay in. But I think it's same for the Bigfoot. So it very well could have been. And, of course, they are the ninja of the forest. They just don't make sound unless they want to.
Unless they're doing that samurai chatter at you, because they are ninjas.
Yeah, exactly.
I think I threw that one at you last Saturday.
And it's always funny. It's always funny, even now. But thank you again, everybody that shared your stories. This is my favorite part of the show, and I love doing the whole show. But hearing your guys' encounters, your guys' experiences.
Testimonies.
Yeah, testimonials.
Yeah.
Those are amazing. So thank you. And again, if you want to share a story of your own, paranormalportalradio@gmail.com is where you can send your own account, or Facebook group is what, Don, for the encounters?
It was Reports of the Unexplained.
Reports of the Unexplained on
Facebook
is a Paranormal Portal related reporting site, so you can share your stories there. And let us know if you want us to use your name or not. It's fine not to. But fantastic stories, and thank you guys so much. We really and truly appreciate it. So let's get into this. Now, as I was saying, we're going to be talking about curses and other bindings. In a nutshell, curses, I mean, of course, everybody grew up with, don't use those curse words. And we've been we've been kind of programmed to believe that that's anything with 4 letters and rhymes with truck or ship. Curse words, Don? You with me? No?
I'm sorry, what?
Oh.
I missed that one. I'm sorry. I'm responding to Regula. She said there's a hissing on YouTube, but she's also in TFR, so I was just going to get ready to ask her if it's hissing on TFR as well.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Well,
because if it isn't hissing on TFR, I'm turning the AC back on.
Oh. Well, it's fine. And perhaps, I don't know, it's usually there's usually a little bit of a noise gate on it that should be killing that, but Not sure where the hissing's coming from, but I can hear it a little bit in my ears as
Yeah,
well.
but that's par
It's
for the course.
it's par for Skype. I think it's coming through Skype, ladies and gentlemen. So if you are hearing a little hiss, I don't know. I live in the north of Idaho, and while we do have broadband internet, I think it might be on the same wires they pulled for the telegraph lines.
Yeah, definitely.
So
Back in the 1850s, we had these lines; they were just crystal clear.
yeah, really fine grade copper. Yeah, so whatever the case is, but I do apologize if the sound quality is less than stellar. It doesn't seem to be anything I can do about it here. So,
Wow.
but just listen to the soothing tones of my voice,
The dulcet
and I'll carry
tones
you into the paranormal portal.
of Brent into the night.
Absolutely. So,
I was just accused of being catty.
curse words, curse words are it's not profanity.
Right.
Clearly, I mean by cursing, of course, I mean like a binding, binding negative energy around somebody, whether through ritual or whether through passionate declaration or other. Now, I had mentioned in the lead into the show that curses were real common back in the day, and of course, there's a lot of legendary curses that still exist as a result of people being tried and executed for being witches.
Right. Right.
And with their dying breath, I will lay a curse on this land, and fill in the blank.
Right.
Now, some people swear by that, and some people live their lives in. It depends on it. It happens to follow pretty closely with certain religious groups. I think put more or less weight in those kind of things. Certain backgrounds, like I believe in places like Louisiana, something like a curse may be considered very important. Very,
Right.
you don't want to mess around with anything curses, anything dark and black magic, and all of that stuff. Now, the idea that a curse has to be a magic ritual is not true at all. As I stated before, it can be anything that is done with intention. Of course, we discussed that on the show many times. Energy follows intention. So if you want to surround someone you care about with love and protection, you envision them with white light around them, for instance. That's just one real common example of sending somebody energy with intention. Now, I believe there's really something to that it can have a really profound effect. People in doing prayer for somebody's health, people have experienced amazing healings, and those people may say, well, that's the light of God. We're asking God to intervene, and that could very well be. But in any case, it's an energy following an intention. Now, the same can be true for the negatives, which is, I hope you crash your car and somebody has a car accident, or
Right.
or that implication that with something's done with anger, it can bind a negative energy around something, and those results can last for a long time.
I like the way you said that passionate. Oh, it was just in my head. Declaration, a passionate declaration.
Right.
Which is having that passion in there, that real motive, that real intent. I think that's perfect for what you were just saying.
Right.
Passionate declaration.
And ladies and gentlemen, I'm not pretending to be an expert on spell casting or occult or anything dark and nefarious. I'm really not. I'm just an enthusiast like you guys, and this really intrigues me. It is an amazing thing that we are such energetic and brilliant lights that we can do such amazing things, and I believe that people can curse other people. I think that is possible. I think it's probably a shared belief that people become susceptible to curses by believing in curses.
Right.
If you believe that a curse may be real, then you are also creating the energy of that event and reinforcing it and amplifying it, I imagine. Now then, there are many people that believe they cannot be affected by curses because of their faith. They may have a strong religious conviction, and therefore that would be a protection. And they are right that it would be, because that is their faith that they are not susceptible to that. So that would rebound or repel that curse. Now, where am I going with this? I'm just trying to explain that I think in our older cultures, especially back in the 1800s, in the 1700s, 16, 15, as you go backwards, when people really seem to believe in magic much more than now, and I think there's a resurgence of sorts, but I think that when people had those and quote unquote superstitions, I think that that curses and things were much more powerful and prevalent. I think that it's important to know that we are creators in the gist of this. You know what I mean, Don?
Yeah, absolutely.
That we create these events, and we can create these events, and these people could very well have created these events. Now, we'll get into a little bit more about this, as far as perhaps we can come up with some conclusions about, if you believe you're cursed, if you believe somebody is wrapping that negative energy around you, what you can do. And hopefully we'll have some good pieces of advice. But just to know that these things are possible, that people have experienced some horrible events, and they believe very, very firmly that that is the effect of somebody's ill will towards them.
Right.
So we're about at the first break, though.
Oh, true. Hey, real quick, Lady Death asked, do you guys think you can be cursed from a past life? And Deb answered, if it was attached to the soul, it may be possible.
Very good points. Very, very good question. I do believe that as well. I mean, if you consider the whole karmic law that karma may follow us, then the idea that a curse may follow us is not real hard to believe.
There you go.
So we're going to get into more of this on the other side, ladies and gentlemen, but we'll be right back for more of the Paranormal Portal in just a couple minutes. Don't go away.
TFR.
My faith in destiny is all I need to prevail.
Truth Frequency Radio.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are back from break. Hope you had a good time. Hope you had a good break. We are back, and this is the Paranormal Portal, and I'm Brent Thomas, your host, joined by my good friend and co-host, Mr. Don Longbeard.
Hola.
And tonight we're talking about curses and other dark bindings and stuff, and, I'm sorry if sometimes I just talk from the hip. Well, no, all the time I talk from the hip, and sometimes I felt like that first half hour was just kind of trying to spit out the words, but I hope that was cohesive and at least made some sense. But ultimately, I just want to say that I do believe people can bind and bind negative energy to other people or places, and I believe that we are these amazing energetic creators on a very fundamental level, that we absolutely create everything we experience, and as such, the idea that we could create negative things is not a big leap of the imagination. So I hope that made sense. But we're getting into that tonight, and we've got some great questions that have come in regarding other questions regarding curses, and I I'll always do my best to answer any of these as I can. But again, I don't want to ever appear like I've got this all dialed in, and I'm coming to you as some sort of expert know-it-all. I don't know it all. I'm trying to learn, because this is absolutely fascinating with me, and I envision the portal as not me preaching to you guys, but us on this journey together. And so I bring up these topics, and not because I've got them all figured out, but because I just want to talk about them with you guys. I want to hear what you have to say. I want to see what kind of feedback you guys have on the subject, because I think it's absolutely interesting, and I think it's absolutely amazing idea that this concept has held on for thousands of years. This concept of curses and places being cursed. Of course, the Native Americans had many places they would not set ground because it was cursed, or something they believed had happened, or they were just feeling the energy and knowing that was not a place for them. It was either sacred or cursed, and they would stay away from it. Right. Our cultures, my own cultures, from England and stuff. Of course, a lot of the common literature comes from there. With these stories of curses and legends, and I don't think there's a culture on the planet that doesn't have some form of this. You look at of course the African cultures are full of evil witch doctors and curses and stuff, and so this is a concept that transcends culture. It's a concept that's been around since we've been gathered together in groups. So it has to have some gravity. It has to have some significance to have survived and not to be just outright dismissed. So just my thoughts, and I just want to share them with you. But if you have your own thoughts about this and would like to bring them to the table, please do. 213-233-3998, and I'd love to hear from you and see what you have to say about it. Again, I don't pretend to be the expert, but if some of you are out there or have other ideas and knowledge of it, please share. This is it's us together learning. So let's get into some of these. What do you think, Don?
I'm thinking we should dive right in.
Dive right in. Don says dive right in. The first one, This one, I saw this title, and it comes out of the Philippines, but I thought it sounded kind of cute, and it might be just horrible. So
He hasn't. No pre-reading here.
I don't usually read stories before the show, and that might be a detriment, but I like them to be as new to me as they are to you guys. And, quite honestly, sometimes I don't have time. So let's read it and see what this one's all about. The Dwarf's Curse. This is my second experience in our house in the province. It is somehow connected to my other story, Shadows Lurking in the Kitchen, which we didn't read, so I don't know what that is. This happened to me when I was 11 years old. My mother always wakes up at dawn, finishing all of her chores even before everyone gets up. These chores include watering the plants in the front garden. One morning while she was watering her plants, she thought she saw something move behind the shrubs. She freaked out because she thought could be a snake, which she really is scared of, so she took her gardening trowel beside her and poked whatever it was in the bush. What came out after was something she never expected. As she told us, it was like a breeze passed through her legs, blazing fast that she never even got a clear picture of what it actually was. Thinking that at least it wasn't a snake, she just shrugged it off and ignored what happened. A few days later, she began itching. First her arms, and then it went to her entire torso. The next thing she knew, she had red marks all over. We thought she might have eaten something that had caused her to have an allergic reaction, so we went to the doctor to have it checked. The doctor gave her medication and a list of foods that she had to avoid, and we were told the marks would disappear in about a week. But they didn't, and the rash even got worse. So we went to Manila and had her undergo an executive checkup. Same results, skin allergy. But this time, the doctor said the condition has no immediate cure and would just naturally subside with a maximum of 6 months' time. Oh my God, that's a long rash.
Yeah.
I can't recall the name of her condition, sorry. They still gave her medicines to take, and it really took a toll on us financially since the medicines were expensive. My dad's sister found out about my mom and suggested that her friend, a faith healer who is well known in our province, come and visit us. We're not really believers of faith healers or witch doctors, but my mom is very religious, thinking there was nothing to lose. We accepted the offer. What the hell?
That's that ghost app you got going. What did it say?
It says kick.
Kick.
I don't know.
Kick the dwarf?
I guess kick the dwarf. So
Kick the snake.
We accepted the offer. It was 4 months into my mom's condition when the faith healer came. The first step was to steam my mom by enveloping her in a thick bed sheet while a mixture of hot water and oil was placed below her. Then he went around our house, first inside and then out in the garden and backyard, while chanting something I couldn't understand. When he came back, he said he knew what happened. It appears my mom hurt a dwarf, old female dwarf, by hosing it down and poking it. We never told anyone about the incident in the garden, so we were surprised how the faith healer knew about it. He said we have to offer prayers and kill a chicken as a gift to the dwarf. So we did. A few days later, my mom started feeling better, and all her marks were gone after a week.
Wow.
We don't know if this is because of the offering or just a coincidence, since the city doctor said her condition will naturally get better after a few months. Nevertheless, my mother never did her gardening so earlier in the morning, and even asked permission from her dwarf friend before watering her precious plants from then on. I, on the other hand, kept thinking, if this dwarf and the shadow I've seen in the kitchen is one and the same. I never told my family about my story, by the way.
Oh.
So whatever the other story is, I guess it's right here. The shadows lurking in the kitchen. Should I read it just because it's tied into this?
Sure, why not?
I'll see how long it is.
Yeah,
it's not too long.
Yeah.
All right, this is the other story this person's referring to. This is my personal experience when I was 7. Thinking of it now, I realized that what the elders in our province used to say may be true after all. Children of pure innocence can see the unseen. I would agree with that. Our house is a 3-bedroom bungalow, and I share a room with my sister. My bed was located about 6 steps from the bedroom door, and it was positioned in a way where I could easily see what or who was outside, especially in the kitchen next to our bedroom. My sister and I always slept with the door open, so at night before closing my eyes, I would always get a glimpse of the kitchen. This particular night was something I've never forgotten to this day. I was about to sleep when I thought I saw shadows in our kitchen. There were two rather small and moved from one kitchen wall to the other. The shadows were moving quite fast. Too fast for a normal person, but not lightning fast. It seemed to me that they were looking for something in the oven, since I could tell their shadows would always stop there for a few seconds, then move again to another part of the kitchen. Oddly, I wasn't hearing any clattering at all. I wasn't scared. In fact, I was curious at first, and I thought it could have been my brothers looking for something to eat, but I realized they couldn't possibly move that fast. So I thought it could be the curtains dancing from the wind. But the movement was so erratic that it was impossible to be the curtains. Recalling all the cartoons I watched as a kid, it occurred to me that they might be dwarves. I wanted to stand and take a look, so I sat on my bed, mustered the strength, but then something in my mind was telling me not to. So I just sat there for a good minute, looking at our kitchen, watching the shadows as they moved around. My sister might have felt that I was still awake, so she shushed me for me to go back to sleep. Being scared of her, I laid down. I laid down and faced the wall and closed my eyes. I never found out what or whose shadows they were, but I never thought it would take 4 years for another experience to bring me back to that night. But that's another story. So very cool.
Wow, yeah. So it is kind of, yeah.
So apparently the Philippines have some little dwarves as well.
Yeah.
I think Robin probably told us that before as well. But all right. So that's the tie-in. Sorry. But apparently dwarves, these mystical beings, could be magical mystical beings. And a lot of people believe they're part of the Fae, the fairy realm, which are rumored to be magical creatures as well. Mostly nature spirits, which is no, dismissal. That's just, I don't know. I think that stuff is absolutely fascinating, though. I know that a lot of people may roll their eyes like, oh, my God, dwarves and fairies, come on. But, again, it's something that's survived for thousands of years. These stories and encounters still to this day, allegedly. I mean, there's a lot of bogus stories out there, a lot of hoaxes. And, I don't pretend everything's real. But if even 1% of them is real, then that's absolutely fascinating. So this kind of ties into Wednesday's show, and this is the witch's curse. So, and this, did I read this one? I had these I read this one. I just didn't show the pictures.
Oh, yeah, this is the one about the trained wizard, yeah.
Yeah.
Harry Dresden.
This is
Wizard for
a
hire.
witch's curse. Yeah, exactly. Person called themselves a trained wizard, and I don't know, sound like he was right out of Hogwarts, so I didn't give him a whole lot of credibility on the last
more like
show.
hogwash.
Curiously, and this is kind of trivial, but I'm pretty sure I know where J.K. Rowling came up with the name Hogwarts.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's actually from the movie Labyrinth with David Bowie.
That's right.
Hoggle was the little dwarf guy, but David Bowie's character never could say his name right and said Hogwarts at one time.
Whatever.
So I'm pretty sure that's where that name came from. Just a little trivia, but it's my own assessment. So this is a witch's curse. A few weeks ago, my friend Katie and her brother Patrick were talking to this new girl at school. She's a bit off and sort of a scene kid. What the hell's a scene kid?
Scene kid,
I don't know.
Okay.
What does that mean? Just
we used to call them ravers.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Okay. Anyways, they began talking about religion, and the girl mentions that she is a witch. Patrick, being the skeptical smart aleck he is, begins to mock her beliefs. It's safe to say this didn't end well. The girl threatened to put a curse on his family, that a dark spirit would cause torment in his home and everyone near him. A few days passed and things were fine. Patrick would continue to mock her, and she eventually performed the said curse on him. She claimed to have done it at her home. The next day she offered him some cookies, which he foolishly accepted against my warning. Soon, however, the curse began to appear real. He began talking about sleepless nights, things moving, seeing shadows, etc. I thought he was joking. However, I was convinced otherwise. One night, Katie calls me asking to spend the night because she keeps hearing whispering in her room, along with feeling a strong presence like someone is there. I welcomed her in my home, and things went fine. Absolutely no paranormal events occurred while she was over, which was abnormal as my usual ghost problems manifest themselves at all times. However, when she left, These same events seem to be further aggravating the normal paranormal activity that occurs near me.
Wow.
Normally, if you've read my previous story, you know this. Casual paranormal events will occur, such as objects vanishing or conveniently appearing when I need them, electronic devices either experiencing static or just continuously act up on their own, even if they're new or nothing is wrong with them. Could a witch truly send a violent spirit after someone? And could a spirit move onto another person? I'm going to try to perform a cleansing in my home, but I'd like for some advice just to make sure. Another thing, my dog will on occasion stare directly behind me for hours and continuously bark at thin air. I fear she can sense the spirit.
Huh.
Yeah, I mean, I would start with a cleansing, I guess, because, you got to dissipate that binding. And if it's energetic, any of the normal mediums that would work on, casting out a negative spirit should work to at least alleviate something like that. In my opinion, again, that's just me thinking out loud. But very cool. Wouldn't you agree, Don?
Yeah, I mean, and it's weird how the girl came over, and then the girl's house that her paranormal stuff stopped. So I wonder if, just that disruption threw it off for a night or two, and then she said it got worse after that, or
after that person came over, yeah. Yep.
So interesting.
Might have just dropped it off.
Yeah. Here, have this. Haha.
Hey, I'm done with this. You never know, ladies and gentlemen. It's hard to know. Let me check the call-in board just in case. Yes, there is a call.
Julia.
This is Miss Julia calling us here on the portal. How you doing, Julia?
Hi.
Hi.
You guys should check your phone line more.
Oh,
I'm sorry. I love you guys.
Have you been there a while? I'm sorry about that.
Well, I was on and then I hung up because I was nervous, and then I decided to take down a few notes and call back in.
Oh, see, that worked out well because now you're better prepared.
There you go.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So how you doing tonight? What's going on?
So I'm good. You guys were talking about curses, and I don't know if it's really a curse upon my family or if I just pick out all these little weird things that happen, because sometimes I do that and it's nothing and I just overthink about it. So I will give you guys the story, and you can decide whether you think it's a curse or whether it's just too many coincidences.
Okay.
Okay?
Sure.
So my Grandma Isla, she had 2 sons and 2 daughters. And one of the sons is my father. And as some of you might know, my dad died when he was 51 back in 1997. Now, a year later, my mother died. Now, my mother died of alcoholism, but she died about a year later on Mother's Day. It sucks, but it happened.
That's horrible.
So by the age of 10, I was an orphan. Then, after that, the other son that my grandma had, Edward, he passed away about, I want to say it was maybe a year or 2 after that.
Wow.
So now you have my dad, my mom, and my Uncle Eddie. And no, my Uncle Eddie was 51. My mother was 46, and my dad was 46, and my mom was about the same age. So, I mean, they're passing on pretty early.
Mm-hmm.
And then now, so my grandma had 2 sons and 2 girls. So both the sons have passed away. And now the 2 girls are my Aunt Tawny and my Aunt Debbie. Now, my Aunt Debbie, are you following along here?
Yep, we're doing good.
My Aunt Debbie had a son, and his name was Quinn Lee. Now, back in 2015, he also passed away. So this is the same bloodline as my grandma. All the men in that side of the family have passed away, and he passed away when he was 46.
Huh.
Wow.
So, and Quinn has a son named Byron also.
Okay.
And he's young. He's like, oh God, maybe he's old. He's like 17 now, I think.
Okay. Uh-huh.
But I'm kind of worried about him because he's a male from that bloodline.
Right.
So do you guys think I'm being weird, or do you see some it's possible that this family line could be cursed with all the men. Or am I being weird? Like, what do you see?
What I'm seeing here's what I'm thinking is like, could it be just the way things went? Sure, it's possible, but if your intuition is telling you that something's not right, that there's something more, I would trust it and at least talk to a psychic like maybe Deb and see if she can dial into that a little bit and find out what's going on. The problem with curses is that they're not recorded anywhere. They're not written down, so it's kind of a hard thing to quantify. But if you think that there's something going on in your gut, in your heart of hearts, it's telling you something doesn't make sense, then do try to get a hold of maybe Deb or perhaps Diane or even Sean, and one of them might be able to steer you to some answers.
Okay. Well, and like I said, I think it might be. It feels like a curse because,
Okay.
I mean, they haven't passed away in the same way. Like Quinley passed away on a motorcycle crash, and my dad passed away from a heart attack. So
Sure.
I mean, they all died in different ways. But the fact that they died at such a young age,
Sure.
and that they all come from the same bloodline,
Mhm.
I was actually kind of worried for my own husband.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, well, if this is a curse upon my house, and it's,
Right.
but I'm hoping that because he's not blood, because I don't roll like that,
Sure.
he's safe. And thankfully I have a female little girl, so
Right.
she's safe.
But check.
I mean, that's the curse that's
Yeah, well, check now. So your grandma Isla, make sure that you, if you can, go back in your genealogy, on your or on her husband's side, or the boys is your grandfather. Go back on his side and see if there's something that's coming through there too, because it may just be. Well, no, because it's not. It doesn't sound like it's a health issue, a generational health issue.
Right.
So but if you think it's affecting the men in that bloodline, you got to follow your grandfather's bloodline back. So that's what I would suggest.
Yeah.
Very true.
Okay, cool.
Well, I hope that
Well,
helps a
thanks,
little bit.
guys.
Yeah.
You guys were talking about something. Oh, how's that ghost app thingy-majigger going for you?
It just said something a bit ago.
So, ladies and gentlemen, what Julia's referring to is we on Wednesday's show we tested out X Paranormal Detector app. It's one of those downloadable apps that you can get, and I've had it for years and years and years. And we had some really neat things come up on Wednesday's show that seemed to be more than just coincidence. So we're actually running it on the side laptop here as well. So tonight it's been pretty quiet so far. Nothing popping off too much, but I about fumigated the whole place with frankincense on a burner. So it was nearly we almost needed windshield wipers in here just to see the monitor. It was terrible. But yeah, we'll keep testing it. If anything comes up, we'll be sure to let you guys know.
Definitely, you'll probably hear it.
Yeah, it comes right over the speaker. So if it says a word, it'll go. It makes this really weird, creepy sounds that almost make you have to scrape your underwear. But
all right.
So, but thank you so much for your call, Julia. We love you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
All right, good night.
Bye-bye.
Very cool.
Yeah, interesting.
Now, I saw that Regula was calling in too, but it looks like we lost her. So,
yeah,
Regula, if you want to call in again, I'll try to check more regularly. But
we'll call in after the break because we're 3 minutes out to the break.
3 minutes out to the break, ladies and gentlemen. So, but those kind of things, that's a really interesting point. It's like, could those things be curses? Sure, because a curse doesn't mean that everybody will meet the same fate the same way. They're just a lot of times it's like, I curse the men on your line to lead short lives or whatever. Well, that means that they are all going to expire with a short lifespan. And granted, 50 some years old it's
not old at all.
It's not old anymore. No, that's really young. I'm going to be knocking on that door myself pretty soon.
That's
Jeez.
both of us there, buddy.
Yeah. So.
Wow.
I mean, I hope that's That's not long, but you never know. But I think that's a great question, and of course that's our modern life though for you.
Sure.
We have to question those things, and I guess questioning it is important too. But I think anytime if you notice a chain of events happening that seem to defy what you would consider just natural occurrences, then it doesn't hurt to check it out. There's many different avenues of doing that. You can talk to different spiritualists, mediums, psychics, get some kind of insight. If you don't believe in that, get a blessing. Go to your religion and ask for cleansing and blessing from your priest or whatever you subscribe to.
Right.
Those are all options. So
Or just start throwing salt everywhere you go.
yeah, well, and I don't know. As far as breaking curses, that's a little
Salt's
different.
not gonna
But
work?
yeah, it's
Doggone
more
it.
for negative energies.
But it's also cheap.
It is. You could just roll in salt before you go outside and hope for the best, I guess. But
Look like Ralphie in A Christmas Story.
yeah, exactly. So, yeah, that was me. I'm the kid that got shot in the eye with a BB gun.
Oh, that's true, huh?
Yep. So that was me.
Wow.
12 years old, ladies and gentlemen, and I took a BB in my right eye. So, still works, kind of. So far. But we're going to take our next break, ladies and gentlemen, for our hour break here on the portal. So, we hope you're enjoying the evening so far. We're just starting to get into the encounters and accounts that people claim where they are experiencing curses. But if you've had something of your own that you'd like to share with us or some thoughts on this whole topic of curses, please feel free to call in. 213-233-3998. 213-233-3998. So we'll be right back in just a couple minutes, ladies and gentlemen. Don't go away for the second hour. Second hour already. And ladies and gentlemen, just to put it out there, tomorrow night as well, Deb Varner will be joining us here in the portal. So tune in tomorrow night as well. But we'll be right back after this break. Don't go away.
Censorship. This looks extraordinarily bad.
They linger in a perpetual dream state, a nightmare from which they cannot wake. I can't see you, Mommy. Where are you? I've never sensed anything like it. Carol Ann is not like those she's with. They're attracted to the one thing about her that is different from themselves. Her life force. It is very strong. It gives off its own illumination. It is a light that implies life and memory of love and home and earthly pleasures. Something they desperately desire, but can't have anymore. Right now, she's the closest thing to that.
Poltergeist are usually associated with an individual. Hauntings seem to be connected with an area. A house, usually.
Poltergeist disturbances are of fairly short duration, perhaps a couple of months. Hauntings can go on for years.
And ladies and gentlemen, we are back. Hope you had a phenomenal break and took care of all your business. And hopefully now we have your undivided attention. Are you there? Paying attention?
I'm here.
Not you.
No.
I knew you were there. I could see you on screen.
Is there anybody out there?
Yes, there is. And in fact, there's somebody on the phone line right now.
Woohoo!
Miss Regula, you are on the air.
Oh my God. Hi.
Hi. Sorry we missed you last time.
You know, there's something about this. Well, let me first start off by saying that, you know, I had some experiences with this kind of thoughts or things, kind of notion when I was very young that sold me on it. You know, they were experiential, so it just kind of sold me on it. But then I was in an environment where, people did not talk about that. So that's a whole other thing. But what I was going to say is, because what you were talking about earlier regarding what we think about other people, we wish some bad things on others, that, those perhaps have the same power that a good thought would have, and
sure.
that the concept of thoughts are things and we can have what we want gained some popularity, I would say, at the very least, like in the last 20 years or so.
Mm-hmm.
Don't you think? Or
Yeah.
am I like in some other world, right?
Right. No, I agree with
That's
that.
a secret. There is those public, right? Yeah. And yet, that part has been like left out. And it seems to me that I'm living in an environment with a lot of people whose thoughts are predominantly negative.
Yeah, it's really been really supercharged lately, especially the vitriol and negativity going around, and it's absolutely, to me, it's just makes me feel sick to my stomach.
Yeah, and so I really love that you brought this up, because I feel like it's a great segue into talking about this, because I think that one of the parts of the solution is to, at least for God's sake, to stop denying it,
Mm-hmm.
to
Right.
stop pretending that we're these noble creatures, who are always wishing the best for our brothers and sisters, people can barely say that word. So, thanks. And so what I wanted to say was, there's a phenomenon that happens for me when I call in, when it's alive, when I know I'm on air. But it's more than that I know I'm on air. It's as though I can feel it.
Oh, really?
Now,
okay.
I don't. Yeah, and I've done some performing too. So it's that. I think you have too. There's this. I I get a sense of the audience. Have you done performing? You have, haven't you?
Yeah, I used to be in a band and
in your life?
Did some performing, yeah.
Yeah. So there's a sense of that you can sense the audience.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
How does the audience feel, right? So I'm talking about this concept of thoughts or things, So I think that's what happens. See this pause that I just had.
Yeah.
That pause. What's happening for me in that pause is I'm taking in what I'm feeling as the thought body around me, and I'm not so sure that's a good idea, because I think that there's a solution to this, and one of them is that it is possible, and I know this from performing, it is possible actually, like you can have a bad crowd, but there's something about especially certain theaters, certain venues, where for some reason when you are up there on the stage, it's like you can access, it's almost like a portal, that's the performance portal. If you can get to that portal, you can transcend the bad crowd,
Right.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So maybe, I think maybe there are creative ways that we can use that are forms of protection for ourselves, because I think that we need it. We just simply need it. I think we're going out into a shitstorm, of everybody's mental bodies, because I don't think the issue is whether or not thoughts are things. It's whether or not we can control our thoughts.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And most people, and I'm myself included, I have to remind myself of the fact that I am an energetic being that is constantly transmitting and receiving. And I think that there's, that we need to have the ability to get centered. And those pauses like you're having, I have them on the show all the time. And it's me, I don't know, I don't know how to explain it other than I try to reach out with my emotions into the microphone and into wherever my voice is going to speak to each and every person out there, because I want to touch them on an emotional level, and I want to feel that connection with the audience. So I do understand exactly what you're saying.
Well, that's interesting. I could try that. I think in this moment, I think I'm over it. So I don't care. Okay, so I'm gonna. Who cares who's listening?
Right.
So here's some things that I want to talk about. I want to talk about this. When I talk about this, they're actually called New Thought religions. So there's been this, I think it started in the 30s. I'm talking about things like science of mind, unity, religious science.
Mm-hmm.
It started with sort of Emmett Fox. It also, there's a strain of psychology that comes into play here. I think Albert Ellis is the guy who did this rational emotive therapies. He wrote a book that became, that's also very popular. Now, see, I think I was going to mention Christian Science, but I think Christian Science is different because Christian Science is based on the Bible. Mary Baker Eddy kept the Bible in there very, very firmly. Mm-hmm. Anyway, I think that these new thought religions, basically they say that thoughts are things, but they are godless religions
right.
in this way. I'm going to be very unpopular what I'm saying, and that's my point.
Okay.
These religions say I am God.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I say God help us all. God help us all if I am God. If I tell the truth about just exactly how in control I am. If I tell the truth about that, and I'm speaking in first person narrative here, but in truth, I know that there are others out there who need to hear this. It's important.
Mm-hmm.
Because the thing that these new thought religions leave out is ethics.
Right.
You have to study them to know that what I'm saying is true. But if you will read them and go to some of these meetings and listen, they are leaving out ethics and they're leaving out compassion. These are big things to leave out. These are key things. And one of the things that kind of flips me out about this is that they really purport to be experts on the mind. This is an age where the focus has gone to the mind, the mental body. We create. And by the way, I've said this to a couple of people who've been proselytizing these religions to me. They're all over the place. I've been standing in their homes when they've said, and all of a sudden I've said, so this is it.
Mm-hmm.
You have free range to create everything and anything that you want. You're telling me this, and this is it. This is your dream come true. This is as good as you can get with this. And because that's the truth for some of them, but there's also people who proselytize this, and they do it at a moment in their lives where they've just gotten everything. The ship has sailed in.
Sure.
They not only do they have the stuff, but they've got the stories of the meaningful events that have happened to them. But here's what I want to say to you. Check back with them in a couple of years.
Right.
Because I did. I saw some it just was interesting. I just want to say it was interesting to see what I found. But that was important because it's part of the journey along the way to where I am now, where I'm saying that compassion, interestingly enough, is a form of intelligence that's in compassion.
Yeah.
It's interesting that these religions that purport to be the experts on the mind and the mental body don't get, because they're too stupid to see it, because the compassion is not there. There are forms of intelligence within compassion, and there are forms of intelligence within ethics.
Right.
And these are key. I just thank you for this opportunity to talk about this, to point these things out about these new thought religions.
Right. No, I think that's a great point.
Mostly true.
Mm-hmm.
They're mostly true. Yes, that's our things. We are responsible, for the events that happen within our lives. But you can't say that something is the truth or true if it's only partially true. I don't like to say it. It's not an absolute truth anymore.
Right.
And this thing about the curses. Like, see, gossip is a form of curse. As a person.
Sure.
If that's our thing.
Mm-hmm.
So there's.
I think that's interesting. It's easy to be on the riding high on the wave and then telling everybody how to get there, but you're right. I mean, check back with those same people and see how they're doing after the wave is kind of subsided, and is that magic still happening, or have they lost that grip? That's one of the things that you listen to people, and I'm not bashing him, but like, for instance, Will Smith. Will Smith has done some great things, and he's a really, I think, a very altruistic person deep down, I assume, from what I know of him. But he always talks about how you just get in that mindset, and the right mindset, and how to get whatever you want by doing blah blah blah. And it's like, it's great when they're already there and they say, well, do this. But I don't know that those truths are always universal either.
Yeah,
I think
might
truth
not be for everybody.
Right, truth is subjective, and so for him that was an important truth, and his process was his truth, but it may not be mine, and I think that has to come into it as well. And that's not an excuse for not doing well. I'm just saying that each of us has our own process, and there isn't a one size fits all, and that's I think what's important to mention as well.
I do too. That was really, really well said.
Oh,
and an aspect of it, that I hadn't thought of, that I think comes with compassion.
Right. Yep. I agree, and that's
you see.
Yep.
That perspective includes, considering others. We don't all fit into that one mold or paradigm. A little kitty here. I have a little kitty cat.
Yeah, I can hear him
crying.
That's sweet.
He's great.
Aww.
He's great. He's really sweet. Animals are goodness, I got distracted. Okay.
Oh.
Anyway.
It's okay.
We're like dead air here. I think it's time for me to go.
Well, thank you so much for calling in and being a part of the show as always. We love you, and it's great to hear from you, Regula.
Awesome. Good night.
All right, good night.
Night, Regula.
Laters. All right.
All right, very cool. And the call line is open if you've got an idea of your own out there, ladies and gentlemen. Again, 213-233-3998. And again, tomorrow night, Deb Varner, our Paranormal Portal psychic, will be joining us to do readings on the portal. So I hope you guys will tune in and take advantage of that. Again, Deb is doing private readings as well. If you'd rather have a private reading, please go to Purple Mystic Readings by Deb on Facebook. That's her own page in order to get in touch with her. And she has a website now as well, and you can reach out to her via her, or not a website, but her email. And I got to look that up again. I think it was pretty close to that title I just said, but I just got to look to make sure I don't read it wrong. Oh my goodness. Where did I go? I don't remember when we talked about it. I'll find that website or the email address as well, ladies and gentlemen, but it's, Deb is wonderful, and she'll be on the show, and I know if you give it a shot, you'll be really happy you did. She's brilliant, kind, loving soul, and her accuracy is really nothing short of stunning. So hopefully you guys will tune in tomorrow night at the very least, but hopefully you'll call in as well and get a little sneak peek into what's going on.
Yes.
But let's get into more of these curses, and those were some great points Regula brought up. Thank you so much for sharing those thoughts. Thoughts are things. That's a great way of looking at it. And thoughts are things that become manifest with intention. And I think that's, it's all like a combination lock, really. And when you're talking about curses, it's anybody's game. But let's look at the next one. This one's a family curse. It says, I live in Northern Ireland, just outside Carrickfergus, in a renovated mill that's been in our family since my great-grandfather's time. Wow, that's really cool. It's safe to say that I've had an easy life. Bless you.
Thank you.
He was very wealthy, and this was passed on and added to, as well as the house, which has changed from the mill thanks to my grandfather. Lots of unexplained things have happened in that place, and from my great-grandfather's journals that he kept, I think it's due to him. After he went away to England, he came back to the mill and things started occurring, and I quote from his journal, things like faces in the darkness and noises in the night. He unfortunately, towards the end of his life, developed dementia, and his last entry read simply, I'm so sorry. My grandfather inherited the place, and things continued for him. He would often tell me of things he saw and heard when he was a kid, and they used to scare the hell out of me, but as I got older, I figured out that they were just stories to scare me because he had kind of a wicked humor. He's now in a care home, and as my mother never wanted the house, I decided I would take it as it's worth a lot. I have a wife and daughter, and it's part of my family's heritage, and I'm rather sentimental about that. As soon as we spent the night, weird things started occurring. They started off small, a few bangs, things went missing, etc. I put it down to being an old house and my own carelessness, but then the real hauntings began. Plates were smashed, doors and cupboards opened by themselves. One night as I was walking to the study, I saw a shadow against the wall. Thinking it was mine, I thought nothing of it until I realized that there was no light behind me, and that moment it moved across the wall and out of sight. Oh, that's creepy. This truly started to frighten me. Then, as I came home one day, I heard the sound of quick footsteps, a giggle, and the study door slammed shut. We hear voices in our ears when on the computer or watching television saying things like, I'm here, and not yet. Worst is this is affecting my family. My daughter made 2 new imaginary friends who tell her to go out into the knife drawer and tell her to draw strange things. Usually it's simple things like the moon, etc., but one she drew with a pair of red eyes in the darkness. So after that, I took away her books and coloring pencils. My wife hears noises, voices, sees things outside our windows, and she's becoming very distraught. Things like this happen regularly, maybe once every 2 nights, and it's at its worst. At its worst night, every night. I don't know what that means. I think it gets worse every night is what he's trying to say. Many of you may read this and just dismiss it, but from me, this is a real thing, and I lived through this, and I'm at my wit's end. I don't want to sell the house, and it's getting close to that point. Can anyone please tell me if there's anything I can do to stop this curse and these events? Thanks for listening to this rant. Now, that's an interesting thing. The person is relating the haunting as a curse. And could that be? Well, absolutely. I guess if somebody's bound negative spirits to you and your family. Remember when I was talking a few shows ago about the Dead Files? And for instance, the episode she was helping a family. This is Amy, what is it? Adams? Amy? No. I can't remember her darn name now. Amy, the psychic on that show, she was helping a family who was having real problems, and people were being attacked, and the whole mood was horrible, and she saw these rat-like creatures outside of the house. They were ethereal. She could only see them as a psychic, but she said they were like large rat creatures.
Right.
And their job was to circle the house and to direct negative energy into the house and keep negative energy in the house, not let it out. Now, she also said that this was the result of some negative casting. So in this case, this is a direct correlation to like a curse. This would be a curse. Those of you into the Harry Potter books, you know, the unforgivable curses. And those are more just like instant spells. Those aren't necessarily
curses that linger.
Right, they're not lingering curses.
It's got an immediate effect, and it's only affected as long as they're there.
Right, so it's an instantaneous casting. Right. So that's a little different, and that's fiction, of course. But the idea of curses can be to bind negativity to you. It could be just that simple, and suddenly you're experiencing hauntings, or you're experiencing things in your house, such as this last story. And is that possible? Sure, I really believe it is. And there again, maybe a normal house cleansing wouldn't work. You know, having people come over and saging and doing rituals may not work. You might have to undo that energy first. Now, I will say that I think things like saging and those kind of practices like frankincense and saging, other things that can be done to cleanse the atmosphere can certainly help alleviate them, but in cases where it never quite gets rid of it, then it sounds like there's other energies that were bound and need to be unbound. In the case of the Dead Files, where she saw these rat things, her answer to that was to have, I think, a priestess come in, like a Wiccan priestess, or a witch. I'm not sure, or was it a voodoo practitioner? I don't remember. But the advice she gave was that it would take a ritual, an opposing ritual, to undo the ritual that was done. So it's not just as simple as, well, I'm going to burn some sage and, have some candles going and think happy thoughts. That some of these curses may entail needing to bring in a shaman, needing to bring in an alternative type of priest, priestess, or practitioner to counter a negative curse. So that's something to keep in mind. But again, I think that show is great for gaining information and insight into some very peculiar haunts. But then again, they only respond, they apparently only go to the worst of the worst kind of haunts. They have quite a screening process for the show. And you have to meet a lot of criteria in order to be featured on there, but things have got to be horrible. And, of course, when they come there, there's all kinds of really drastic steps and measures that she is suggesting people take to undo it.
Wow.
So we're almost at the next half-hour break,
I know,
dude.
huh?
Wow.
Got less than 2 minutes. My goodness.
But I wanted to spend a little bit of time about talking about that. So if you do believe there's a curse, again, getting back to like Julia's call, talk to somebody that can verify that for you, because like I said, there's no place that these are recorded. Like, well, let me look it up. Yep, it turns out that Hazel cursed your family back in 1852. I mean, there's no record of it. So all you can do is talk to a psychic or sensitive or a medium to have them read that energy and tell you what's going on.
Yeah.
And if it is the case, you may have to reach out to a shaman. You may have to reach out to another medicine man or holy man or woman or priestess in order to have them negate that. And that's, I don't know what that entails. I mean, I've never had a conversation with any of those type of people what it takes.
Well, Sean's in the
Oh
chat
yeah,
room.
Sean.
He popped in there and he said, well, he said you've got to find the binding and break the binding, of course, but without that guidance of someone who knows what they're doing, that's kind of a, it's one of those things you don't want to dabble in,
Right. Now, some curses can be energetic and just energetic alone, but some of them can have focal objects. In other words, it is possible someone has gained entrance to your house, left a cursed item, and then left, and you would need to locate that and get it out of your house. But how do you figure that out? That's where the question marks are. We'll be right back, ladies and gentlemen, for the last half hour of the show, but don't go away.
Play their games. Everybody loves to place their bets. They don't understand the price I paid. They don't care to comprehend. Trace their lines upon my body, dripping stars across my heart. Raging anger pours inside me as their lies keep falling apart. Taking off the slice of my sanity, just make sure that you're well.
ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Paranormal Portal. I'm your host, Brent Thomas, and we are in the last half hour already tonight. Again, tomorrow night, Deb Varner will be joining us to do free call-in readings to the Paranormal Portal, so definitely take a look. If you're looking at the screen on YouTube, take down that phone number and remember it, because if you call in early, you'll be guaranteed a reading, but if you call in late, I can't make any promises. But again, if you're listening on TFR, iHeart, TuneIn, or TalkStream Live, the number is 213-233-3998. So, got a lot of people listening to us tonight. See that?
Wow, yeah.
Yeah. Quite a lot, ladies and gentlemen. Sweet. But we have a phone call. Another caller on the line, and this is Sean. How you doing, brother?
Hello, everybody.
I was hoping
I'm
you'd
doing
call
okay.
in.
At least tonight it's not a weepy subject.
That's right, and this is kind of in your wheelhouse, so I'm glad you called in.
Yeah, this one is one the first thing that I usually tell everybody when we're dealing with curses is to understand, first of all, it's like the Matrix. There is no spoon. There is no curse. It is like anything else. It's an energy that's formed, and it's usually anchored to you. Now, the number of loops and anchors that are set into whatever it is that it's attached to makes it more powerful. Sort of like, if you think about it like a coil on a magnet, the more times the loop is run around the element that's going to be magnetized, the more powerful it becomes. But a curse in the sense that somebody can fling energy and it just comes after you, it really doesn't work that way. It has to have an aiming device or some means of keeping it attached to you. It's the same means that ghosts, spirits, and other things can track you and come after you. So cleansings, I mean, you can cleanse an environment and you won't be able to break it because the chain is still attached to whatever it is that it's anchored to.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had a lot of experience with that sort of thing.
Okay.
One of the many anchors can be either situational, like if this person does X, then Y will occur, or one of the anchors can be if you don't do X, then Y will occur, or Z, or whatever. They can literally be crafted in such a way. Now, if you go back to the old days of when they were, if you've ever seen the original writings of Abracadabra, the whole reason for it was basically as the word disappears, the effect increases. And I don't mean the curse from Harry Potter, Avada Kedavra.
No.
We're going to stay away from that kind of thing. So, but as the words dissipate, the effect becomes stronger. And some people would put curses on paper, create the effects, create the anchors, and sometimes the anchors can be physical. In the case of thaumaturgy, it's linking as above, so below. Basically, the small portion of the sum of what you're holding represents the larger mass of what it is that you're trying to affect. Hoodoo has the same kind of thing in it. Thaumaturgy is based on it. Science actually backs that up. Mm-hmm. Not only in the chaos theory, where you can actually see the representation of the larger sum from a leaf, let's say for a tree, but also in the branching of the veins within a person. There's lots of representations of it that show how the effect, basically how the linking effect works. The biggest issue, and I'm trying not to be boring here, is to find where the anchor lies, mm-hmm. and then disrupt it. You can slow it down, you can slow it up, but breaking it usually requires a huge amount of energy if you don't know what you're doing.
Okay.
Which is why exorcisms can be dangerous, because those are bindings to people, and if they don't know how to aim it correctly, then the person can die. I mean, you've heard of those things occurring.
Oh, sure. Yep.
Yeah, it's the same kind of thing. You can mass a huge amount of energy, but you may not be successful. You may just drive it off for a short time, and then it can creep back and start affecting the person.
Right. Very true.
I'm trying to avoid mentioning people who I've had to help, because I don't want them to go, you put me on the radio because you mentioned X, and enough of my friends knew about it.
Right.
So I'm trying to avoid those specific instances.
I think that's important.
But, yeah, but realistically, you have to look at it as an energy form first. And then people like myself, we can go into an area and we can sense where the energy is emitting, especially since this kind of energy is very specific in the way that it feels, because it will usually be either targeting continuously no matter what you do. Like, say, think of it as you go to a window and you clean the window, and the whole window's clean, but you walk away and you come back and there's a handprint again. You can wipe that off, you come back and there's that handprint, and eventually you start being able to spot where the handprint is, who's doing it.
Right.
And so over time, you start to recognize the nature of them and how they are, usually how they're attached. Or like Amy Allen would do, she'll simply just continuously sense a person until eventually what happens is the event, because of the energy, will replay itself in front of her.
Oh, okay.
And I've had that occur myself, where the anchoring simply just replays itself.
Oh, nice.
So the removal of it means figuring out from once you see, then you have to piece together what it is that is actually anchored there. In many cases, Amy Allen she didn't know what it was and would have to refer to any of a number of different people who could.
Yeah. Yep.
And even with all of my experience, I don't have enough to be able to say I could guaranteed crack almost any of them. I actually could point to other people who could. And that's the reason why Joel and I work together, because some of the things I don't recognize, he will. And one of the people who we work with in England, her father, though nowhere near as experienced as Joel and myself, he's had a lot of experience with in places such as Australia and Scotland and such. So he's seen a whole different variety of these things. But the first thing that we look for when we go into a cursed, what we suspect is a cursed environment, is to find what's bound. But the same thing holds true for ghosts that are bound to an area.
Okay.
If they're not willingly bound, because there are sometimes these spirits can be actually uprooted, and it's done in voodoo as well. People who are negative practitioners can take a spirit that has not much memory of its previous life and focus it, weaponize it like a gun, and then tie it to the person that they want to have continuously affect them. Wow. Usually this involves having some of that person's effects before they died, and some of the person's effects that they want to have dealt with.
Well, then, does that include parts of the person as well, like a body part?
Yeah.
Okay.
As hideous as that sounds, you can actually necromantically bind them,
right.
Not just using hair. If you use just stuff that's been in contact with the person or something that they liked in life, it's more than enough. But the stronger the binds are stronger when the items are more personal.
It's actually
right down to leftover bits of you.
Jeez. Wow. That's all kinds of creepy. You're right, though. Wow. And it's absolutely terrifying that kind of stuff is out there. Yeah.
Which is also a reason why a lot of people will also destroy their hair and nail clippings, make sure that they're incinerated, because they can be phobic of that, it being used against them.
Wow.
But there also comes the reality that in that same method, you can actually bind beneficial things to them. A curse is just a negative binding. A positive binding, think of it as a blessing,
right,
or a protection. That kind of thing can be bound in the same way.
Oh, no, that's interesting.
What can be made negative is also positive.
Okay.
Truthfully speaking, there's no such thing as evil in this field. It's just doing the wrong thing with the right abilities.
Right. Yeah. No, that's a good. It's all about the outcome that determines evil or good. You're right, but that I know that some people can very much intend evil and use whatever to make that happen. But you're right. That the act in and of itself, it's like a hammer is not evil, but if you put it through somebody's skull, that's an evil thing to do with a hammer. But you can also build a house with it.
Exactly.
So.
And a blade a blade can take a life, or within a doctor's skilled touch, it can remove a disease.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
It's all the application of it. The ability itself is not the evil thing. And I actually was, because I'm allowed to talk about this one, I was actually allowed to protect a friend who went to jail for no real cause whatsoever. He ended up making tons of money on this. But when he went to jail, there was a lot of people who were aiming for his life. And so what I was asked to do was to do as much protection as I could. And this is, you got to remember, I was 17 at the time, so my abilities were quite limited, so I needed something to be able to bind.
Mm-hmm.
And so I asked for hair and nail clippings and utilized those in order to be able to keep him protected. Where he had friends that were dying in the jail, left and right, he was one of the few people who actually came out alive. And so take that for what it's worth.
Well, sure, yeah. I mean, that
would be the exact opposite of a curse.
Right. Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, there's no question, at least in my mind, and I'm sure in a lot of our listeners' minds, that stuff is very real. I mean, if you subscribe at all to the paranormal, you've got to have somewhat of an open mind, and the idea of curses and such. It's anchored in our actual, in our genes. This has been something that's been around for thousands of years. Like I said at the lead into the show, I mean, this is not a new concept. So for it to survive this long and across so many cultures across the globe, cultures that never had anything to do with each other, to have the same belief systems, it has to be something to it. There has to be some reality to it. Even to the skeptical mind, I think they can at least acknowledge that there's got to be something to it.
Well, that's...
And something that sorry.
No, go ahead, Sean.
One of the things that you guys were discussing on one of the other shows was people flinging negative energy at people, and cleansing when an energy is near instant usually doesn't work because, of course, it's a negative instantaneous effect. But the most advanced technique for keeping this negative energy from being able to ground out in you is to think of yourself as the light bulb at the end of two lines of energy. Basically, if you don't have a closed circuit, say the battery, then the bulb isn't going to light up. Mm-hmm. And think of the negative energy coming your way as that electricity. You don't want to be lit up. Mm-hmm. So, and the light occurs from resistance. Knowing that somebody's flinging energy at you, and this is the most advanced technique, so I don't think this is going to work for everybody, but understanding and accepting it literally flows right through you and does nothing. It passes through. The best cultural example I can give would be in the episode of Star Trek in the original series when Spock realizes that they're at the gunfight at the OK Corral on the losing side. He realizes that they're just phantoms, ghosts, and he has to use his mind meld ability to get everybody else to understand that as well, so that they don't get hurt. Understanding that you'd accept it and you let it pass, it finds no home in you, and actually races back sort of like a superconductor to hit the original caster. Depending on what your understanding is, 3 times, 7 times, 7 times 7, right. And it has a magnificent effect when it re-lands. Which
cool.
Unfortunately isn't perfect to curses, so I'm very sorry, Don. Go with what you were going to say.
You know what? That's okay, because honestly, I'm brain dead at the moment. I forgot what I was going to say. But please, no, that's fine. That's fine.
I'm sorry.
No, that's normal here.
And this holds true with all negative energy or even positive energy. If you don't resist it, it will do its job. But if it's negative, it will pass through. And you can also hold some curses in abeyance, the negative energy in abeyance, by simply being the non-resistor. Mm-hmm. There's multiple cultures around the globe that will actually tell you about how that works. But this also is that will work for long enough to be able to get you time to be able to find how to stop the anchor or break the anchor or get someone who can. Mm-hmm. And if you know that you've got a curse or if you even suspect, get on the phone, get to somebody who's a specialist, a psychic, or who can, sense from a distance. Get their advice quick, because the very worst you're going to hear is, oh, you're in trouble, but more than likely you may just hear, well, it's all just circumstantial. I sense no anchor.
Sure. Okay.
And that nothing's better than that peace of mind. Is there's nothing there.
Absolutely.
It's just circumstance.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, because and to have that reassurance is great, because I think that people, if they're suggestible enough, could create their own curse just because they believe they're cursed, and that's the other side of it, because we are creators. So.
Yeah, I've actually encountered people who didn't realize that they were gifted enough to be able to create their own thought forms that then plagued them. That's one of the things. I had to have that chat with my youngest son recently. He's 7 years old, and so he's gotten to the point now where he can create his own monsters and doesn't realize that he's doing it. And as I've told you before about monsters from the id, like from that movie with Leslie Nielsen, and Robbie the Robot, Walter Pidgeon. What is it called? Forbidden Planet. There you go. You actually can create your own negative things that can chase you. Mm-hmm. And the more gifts you have, the more you can empower them without even realizing you're the one who's making the boogeyman in the corner. And so if you create your own curse, and it will chase you to the end of your days, nobody can really remove that, because every time some specialist destroys it, your mind will just reconjure it.
Right.
To use Harry Potter.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And I think that that's an important point to bring up as well, because, we are, whether we realize it or not, and you're right, there are certain people that are more naturally tuned to it than others, but I think with enough anxiety, a lot of people could bypass their own limits and create something really magnificently powerful and horrible, just because of a cascading belief, which would feed that energy to an extreme amount. But so yeah, you don't want to create those problems for yourself.
Yeah, especially with the way horror movies now completely go off the rails and don't actually give you the original or the real story. They could make you think that such things are very common, but then there's also ones that do exist, but only for a small window of people, such as in the case of, everybody believes Freddy Krueger is just made up, but it's actually based on the Da Chou of the Hmong people of China. And when people that were also Asian were told about this thing, it affected them and started killing men in their 30s that were completely healthy, didn't drink, didn't smoke. And it was actually an anchor on their entire race, all of them. And once they began doing the rituals and the stuff that they were told would keep this thing in abeyance, and practicing their original religious beliefs, gone. It didn't kill anymore. Just as quickly as it came in, it stopped.
Wow.
And medical science still calls it, by some weird term, Asian sudden death syndrome or something. Joel and I talked about it on our channel, but that's another one. You wouldn't really call it a curse as much as you'd call it something, an energy that says you will do, and then if you don't, you're going to get it. And they got it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know what the death toll was at before it finally stopped, but it was in the thousands. It was the number one killer, even above murder.
Wow.
Of these people in Southern California.
That's amazing. Now, I think it's important probably for you to take a moment and let people know how to get in touch with you, because this is kind of what you do. I mean, this is a strong part of what you're capable of helping people with. So why don't you let people know how to get in touch with you, Sean?
Okay, well, my channel is Ian's Magic Oak. I'm on YouTube as well. You can go to my website also, which is on Facebook, which is Ian's Magic Oak Facebook page. Just look for me there. I also have my email address, which is Ian's Magic Oak. It's magic with a K, IANSMAGICKOAK @gmail.com. Contact me through any of those mediums, and I will do my best to either help you or find someone who can in your area, since we're adding folks all the time. Mm-hmm. I charge nothing. And the very least, I will definitely do my best to help you. And if I cannot help you, I will try and find someone who can. And it's no charge.
Absolutely. And thanks for doing that. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it, because it's nice to know there's resources. I mean, one part of the show is talking about phenomenon, but the other part that I take a great deal of pride in And that's really thanks to you and Diane and Deb as well, who've put themselves out there to say, hey, we're here to help if somebody needs. So thank you so much for putting yourself out there and for being a part of the show.
You're welcome.
All right, brother. Well, thank you so much for calling in and sharing your information with us. That's a wonderful way to cap off a very interesting night. So I appreciate that.
Oh, you're quite welcome. Thanks for having me, and good night.
All right, good night.
Night, Sean.
All right, so there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Some great tips and ideas and in closing, and I guess we got about 5 minutes left, so maybe I can read another one.
There you go.
That's the one I just read. And so we get to childhood curse. Oh, dear God, that's a long curse.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can read that.
Yeah, you can do it. You can do it.
All right. This will be the first time telling my story to people other than my close family, those of whom I live with and grew up with, even when it took me well over 10 years to tell them of my experiences. You guys can call me D. I'm Mien, M-I-E-N. The only reason I feel it's worth mentioning is because our culture and religious background, my family, especially being the son of shaman, is very religious and superstitious. Me, on the other hand, am of the newer generation. I'm a psychology major and always try to be rational and logical with my way of thinking. Any questions with what a Mien people are and our beliefs, please feel free to ask. It says, but I don't think he's probably going to answer us. So I'm not sure what they are, but it sounds like a pretty interesting culture anyway. Though I mentioned above I'm a rational guy, I do believe there are things which we cannot rationalize with logic. Oxymoronic, I know. Sorry about that. Anyways, my experience goes back to when I was about 9 or 10 years old. I grew up in the back in the back house between a Christian church and an abandoned house with my parents and older brother. The front house was occupied by my grandparents, uncle, aunt, and 5 cousins. As you can imagine, I grew up with my cousins and as my neighbors and first friends. We played hide and seek, cops and robbers, tag, pretty much every day that was an eventful day. This was before the time of smartphones and the internet. Seems like a loving family on the surface, but behind closed doors, I was shunned and made to be an outcast by my aunt and uncle, even my grandmother. This may be due to the fact that I am adopted, or maybe my grandmother didn't think her stepson, my father, her kin. I don't know. Though I think it's the former, not the latter. On the summer night, my cousins and I were playing hide and seek. I remember the night vividly. It was a Saturday twilight hour. The sun was slowly setting, casting an orange glow in the sky. I was running to find a place to hide, running along the walkway in between the blocked-off church and my grandparents' house. All of a sudden, mid-stride, I felt a pinch on the left side of my stomach, right under my rib cage. I stopped abruptly and lifted up my white T-shirt, and upon doing so, a silkworm came falling down. I quickly examined my stomach and found an irritation left by the worm. After cursing to myself, I slowly lifted my head up, and the most surreal feeling I've ever had in my life took hold. There was suddenly no more orange skies, no more sunset, no light or darkness. There was just an empty space, a deafening silence, and not a single movement to disrupt what I can only describe as pure peace. Then it happened. I peered into the little window that looks out into my grandparents' basement with my back towards the church, and the basement was dark and empty, yet I have no idea why it took hold of me. I stood there frozen, just staring into darkness, and seemingly out of thin air, there were 2 red eyes staring back at me. I still get the chills, and my ears feel deaf when I talk about it. Whatever it was, I was locked down in a staring contest with it for what felt like hours. I don't remember feeling scared. I just remember the feeling of being alone, and I blinked. I blinked, and the colors and sounds of the world came flooding back. I was able to move again. So I ran and hid, not wanting to be found by my cousin. As I hid in my hiding spot, the hairs on my back and my neck stood up, and goosebumps filled my body. I was overcome with fear, having realized what just happened. After seeing the red eyes, I had a series of bad luck and weird things happen. In middle school, I went through a period of great depression and self-loathing. I've seen shadows and faces, heard voices inches from my ear, and not being able to make out what they are saying. Still, I told no one about what I was seeing or how I was feeling until one night in 2009, driving home from Best Buy, where I work. I seen something dart across the freeway. It looked so real I braked and swerved trying to avoid hitting it. After passing it, I turned back only to see nothing was in the freeway. Oh, that's weird. As I was pulling to my driveway, I heard a rattling sound coming from my engine. Thinking it was odd since I just got the car from the dealership 2 days prior, I popped open the hood to find the washer to my timing belt was completely unscrewed and was just hanging by the edge. I went to try to grab it and it just fell on the floor. I had a sick feeling in my stomach when I thought how close I came
Not gonna make it.
to losing control. Oh. Anyway, that's that story. There's not much more after that anyway. But love you all. Be good, be kind, be nice. We'll
Deb
see you tomorrow
night.
Deb Varner tomorrow night on the portal. Don't miss it. Stick around for Jimmy
Jimmy
G into the
Gene.
microcosm. Coming up next year on TFR, iHeart, TuneIn, TalkStream Live. Love you all. Be good, be kind, be nice. We'll see you tomorrow.